Never tried to make too much of a fanfare of the presentations at the beginning, but I gotta read this one. Tim Arnold, so you want to open a pinball museum. Tim Arnold was raised by a pack of operator wolves who taught him the ways of stealing lunch money from children. He ran arcades in Michigan until he was run out of town by local officials and ended up in Las Vegas, where all showbiz legends go to die. He had a bunch of old pinball machines and didn't have a truck to take them to the dump, so he opened the Pinball Hall of Fame. Tim and his jolly band of pinball pirates now spend their time fixing machines and raising money for local social service charities. Here are a lifetime of stories of hard-earned lessons if you're thinking about, wishing, or planning on operating your own pinball museum. Clay Harrell is joining Tim to give you another dose of reality. Also is Michael Sheese. Larry? Okay, well, why don't I go ahead and introduce Tim Arnold.
Hello, I'm Tim, the Director of Stuff and Things at the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. This is a quick seminar that's going to be divided into three parts. First of all, I'm going to explain what the Pinball Hall of Fame is. Then we're going to get into a brief discussion of other people that have opened pinball clubs and or pinball museums, including Clay here. People that were in this seminar last night got a lot of information there. And number three, what you can do if you want to start your own pinball club and or museum. The Las Vegas Pinball Collectors Club and the Pinball Hall of Fame grew out of an event we used to have at my house called Fun Night. I got a big giant shed in my backyard with about 1,000 pinball machines in it, about 350 of which were all rebuilt and ready to go and were totally playable. We started out, the first Fun Night was in the house before the shed was built. We had, I think, 15 people and 8 people and 15 machines the first time we did it. And then it just grew and grew from there. We'd also do it in conjunction with the Jukebox and Game Operators Trade Show that was in Las Vegas twice a year. We'd invite everybody over. And it was really kind of a nice, mellow event when I would call people on the telephone and say, come on over and play pinball. And I would get everybody in the industry a phone call, and they would come over after the trade show. But then the internet started happening, and I made the mistake of emailing people an invite. And of course, they had to email all their friends at work who invited all their other friends. And pretty soon, what was a nice, mellow little event turned into a huge, overcrowded, very hot, very dangerous event with people that I had no idea who they were, traipsing through my house, through my yard, touching my stuff, stealing keys out of games, taking all the nickels off the bingo games and sticking them in their pockets, smoking dope everywhere, just a terrible problem. It also became a strain on my house because the house wasn't really set up for the hundreds of amps of electric that the event needed. And the plumbing, we were on a septic tank, we were in a kind of a rural area, and the septic tank ended up backing up, so we had to get a portable chemical toilet. And it just, I remember the last one that we did, the fire marshals showed up and said, if this wasn't a private residence, I'd shut you down right now. And I kind of said to the guy, look, I realize it isn't safe. And then I realized it also wasn't fun anymore. It's like Clay said about his little adventures. When it's no longer fun, it's time to bail. So I stopped doing the Fun Night. I still had all the machines sitting in the shed in the backyard. And we decided to get an actual corporate identity so that we could take the project to the next phase. So we incorporated as a 501(c) not-for-profit corporation called the Las Vegas Pinball Collectors Club. I am president for life, El Jefe, and we have other corporate officers and board of directors, all the stuff you need to have a not-for-profit corporation, including a tax return, which is available for inspection, anybody who wants to see it. And if you're ever curious about anything financial about our organization, you can go to guidestar.org and look at our last 3 years of tax returns for free. And basically, well, we'll get into that later. After Fun Night, and it got too big, we decided that we were going to start looking around for a place to open a permanent museum that would be open to the public. This would be something that would be open 5, 6, or 7 days a week, something that would have regular hours, that would act like a business and not a hobby. It's very important that your customers know that if they want to play pinball, that it's available every day of the week from X time to X time. And it's not like they show up there and, well, Tim decided to go fishing, so it's closed today. You have to have very regular hours if you're going to get a repeat clientele. So we looked around, we came close to signing a lease a couple times, but the numbers didn't pencil out correctly. And then there was a movie theater, one of the last independent movie theaters that wasn't in a mall or a casino, or it was just in a strip center, that they had a 4,500 square foot space next to the theater. That would be about enough room for 150 to 200 games if you shoehorned them in real tight. We did some measurements, laid it all out in graph paper. We knew ahead of time what it was going to look like when we opened up. At the time, this was 2004, 2005, 2006. The commercial space rental was very tight in Las Vegas. They couldn't build shopping centers fast enough, and rents kept going up. We managed to sign a 4-year lease at the old facility at $1 a square foot plus, which means we were responsible for certain other things. Generally, when you see plus on a lease, or triple net as some people call it, you can add about 25%. So we were out for about $1.25 a foot, which puts our monthly rental at between $4,800 and $5,600 a month, because of course every year they have to have an increase. That was a real good rate at the time. We looked at other shopping centers that went at $1.50 to $2, and if you get into a mall type situation, you were talking $3, $4, $5. So we signed a lease for 4 years. We had some problems with the county as far as our business license. They didn't like the fact that we were charging by the game instead of a pay one price thing at the door. But we eventually got that handled. We opened up there next to the theater. Our income initially when we first opened up was about $2,000 to $3,000 a week. Now, anytime you hear anybody talking about income in the arcade or games business, everything's quoted on a weekly basis. If you want to convert it to monthly, multiply it by 4.2. If you want to convert to yearly, multiply it by 52. So it was $2,000 to $3,000 a week when we first started out. The theater next door to us closed twice in the 4 years we were there. And the last bunch of people that was running the theater were a bunch of basically crackheads that somehow got a lease and then they never paid their rent. They never even had a business license. They were living upstairs in the theater loft. I came in one day and they had an ambulance in front of the ticket booth, and the ambulance guy was asking whether he smoked the drugs or injected them, because he was having some kind of a speed overdose, and he like kicked into hyperdrive and was spazzing out. He's foaming at the mouth a little bit, and it really got nasty. Plus, the whole corner that we were on started to deteriorate. There was a lot more homeless people. There was some heroin junkies living in back of the theater, and it was just, it started out nice, and then the theater went downhill. They sold the shopping center twice, and each owner was a little worse than the owner before. And we just decided that at the end of the lease, we were going to try to get a space that we could own, a space that was a little closer to the strip. We were at 3300 East Tropicana before, which is basically 33 blocks east of the strip. And where we're at now is 1610, so we're half again as close to the strip as we were before. And we also wanted more space. We had crammed in 200 games into 4,500 square feet, and the aisleways, any of you who were there, the aisleways were rather tight. You had a tendency to bump into people's butts a lot as you were walking down the aisleways. We had some horrible blue carpet that we dug out of a dumpster. The ceiling was very low. We had a claustrophobic feeling about the place. The shopping center, the sidewalk outside was broken. There were giant chuck holes in the parking lot. It just wasn't something that we were very proud of. Plus, during the time that we were there, we had gone from $2,000 to $3,000 a week to between $5,000 and $8,000 a week. And we've been taking the money and putting it in a bank account, a building fund. And our idea was that we wanted to get a building that the club could own rather than renting. There's advantages to a not-for-profit owning a building that they're in. One of the big advantages is we don't pay property taxes because we're not-for-profit. If you pay rent, 20, 30, 40% of your rent is passed through the landlord to the county as property taxes. So when we moved down the street, we actually ended up doubling our square feet from 4,500 to 8,600 square feet, and the expenses were about the same. So it was like we moved to a better space. It was a nicer building. We owned it, but we were paying about the same. So that's what we did. The movie theater closed twice. So when we quit, we had, at the rental facility, we had $700,000 in the building fund. We looked around, and we finally came across the building at 1610 East Trout. It was listed on LoopNet, which is a commercial real estate site on the internet, for $1.5 million. We offered them 1.1. They came back at 1.3, and we settled at 1.2. So we had a $1.2 million expenditure on the building. Now, because we're not for profit, there was no real estate transfer tax, so we didn't pay that. That would have been 0.5% there. And we represented ourselves in the sale, so there was no real estate commission to a real estate agent. We basically got in for exactly $1.2 million. We put down the $700,000 that we had in the building fund. You people may remember that as I've been going to these shows for all these years and years and years, I've been whoring myself and selling discs and having raffles and doing all sorts of goofy bullshit to raise money. Well, that money, along with all the money that we had operating the rental facility, went into this fund. So we had $700,000 ready to go when we moved down the street. We had to borrow $500,000, which is not a bad debt-to-equity ratio. It's comfortable. We've never had trouble paying our bills because we took the attitude that we're going to pay as much of it as we can and be very fiscally conservative in our financials, and just that way we don't have to worry about, well, how am I going to pay the electric bill this month? How am I going to pay the rent? We pretty much believe in having a lot of money in the bank. Very good idea. So we moved into the new one. Our income, when we moved down the street, we literally closed one night at the old facility on a Sunday night. Our lease was up on a Friday night, so we stayed 2 extra days for free. Ha-ha. And then we moved down the street. The Salvation Army sent a bunch of their trucks over with lift gates. So literally we took the machines, picked them up, put them in a bunch of trucks and drove them down the street, unloaded them, moved them in and plugged them in. So we weren't closed a single day in the transition. Our income went from $5,000 to $8,000 a week. It immediately jumped considerably because the more people were coming. And what I didn't realize at the old facility is that we were hitting capacity constraints, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights. It was so busy there was times you couldn't find a game to play, or you couldn't find the game you wanted to play. You had to play something else. And we moved down the street. We had more machines because I took more games out of storage and put them in there. It was also a nicer spot. It's got a higher ceiling so you don't get that claustrophobic feeling. We've got a nice polished concrete floor. It's very nice. And since we've been doing it 2.5 years now at the new location. We have now completely paid off the building. Our debt has been eliminated, except for earlier this year, we had an opportunity to go to the tax auction and buy the vacant lot that's next door to us. Just to the east of the building is a 2.5-acre paved parking lot that the county had taken about 8 years ago because the former owner never paid taxes on it. So the county owned the lot next door, and they sent it to a tax auction. We went to the auction with $800,000 in cash, ready to bid up to $800,000, expecting to lose because that's 2.5 acres on a major street in Las Vegas. Just a few years ago, there would have been a bidding war up to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Somebody would want to build a condo tower or a new retail center or something on there. We went to the tax auction. The opening bid was $311,000, which is the amount that was owed in back taxes. I held my paddle up to $311,000, and 15 seconds later, nobody else had bid. So the man went, wham. In 2.5 acres, there's about 100,000 square feet. A square foot is about like that. Now, if you imagine quality vinyl stick on your floor tiles, which cost about $3 a piece, we got prime real estate in Las Vegas for about the price of vinyl flooring. Right now, we're not doing anything with the lot. If you're familiar with our facility, you realize that we have only 13 parking spaces in the front of the building. We were more than happy to use the parking lot that was next door to us for free, as long as the county owned it. But we realized that if somebody else bought that lot at the auction, they could put a fence up, and then we would have exactly 13 parking spaces. We've got some more in back, but that would involve people trying to pull into the lot at the same time somebody else is trying to pull out while somebody's trying to come from the back, and they'd be hitting the building. And we realized that we really, really needed the parking. So we picked it up for a song, and we don't really know what we're going to do with it right away. There was an existing pole sign on the building, so we just finished last week putting Pinball Hall of Fame, so we finally have a sign out on Tropicana that's very visible. We put a fence along the back of the property to keep the homeless out, so we no longer have a problem with squatters and starting fires and finding all sorts of needles and stuff in the back. We've pretty much seceded from the rest of the neighborhood, and we've got a fenced wall, the compound that we can control. We don't know what we're going to do with the 2.5 acres. We have several ideas. One idea that was immediately floated was to put a mini golf in there. That way you would have to walk through the arcade, you'd get your mini golf stuff in back, and then you'd go out the back of the arcade building and you could play 18 holes over here in the vacant lot. That wasn't very popular, mainly because we don't know anything about mini golf. And mini golf doesn't really have anything to do with our purpose as a pinball museum, so we kind of just gave up on that idea. Another idea that we've had is to continue the existing building out the back and make an L-shaped building with the existing building in the front, and then more stuff coming out in the back and along the as far as we want it down the vacant lot. We have about 250,000 square feet in 2.5 acres. We have to have 4 parking spots per 1,000 feet, so we could have about 100,000 square foot building on the vacant lot, along with the 8,000 that we have in the existing building. We could have basically as huge a building as we want. We've talked about enlarging, putting more machines out there, but the problem we've run into is that we haven't even filled up the 8,000 square feet we had that we got 2 years ago because we've been so busy keeping up on things. Business at the museum this summer was nothing short of phenomenal. We went from $5,000 to $8,000 a week at the old location to immediately jumping to $8,000 to $10,000 a week. And then this summer we had a record week, $17,240 in a week in coins that went through the games. And routine weeks this summer were 12, 13, 14,000. It was just incredibly busy. We had a front page article in the Los Angeles Times. We've had some TV exposure on some of the pickers and the Fish Police show and a bunch of other things that have really driven the business. Tank, that's the name of it, I'm sorry, Fish Police is different. So business has been phenomenal. I also had a couple health issues which slowed me down. But we're hoping to get back up to full strength. Also, business has dropped off quite a bit since the middle of August. We're back down to $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a week. Part of that is seasonal. Usually we would drop off pretty good in September, but the drop this year was very large. I don't know why. Besides the operation that we own on Tropicana, we have a satellite mini museum that's located in the Riviera Hotel on the Strip. This has about 50 machines. I think about 45 of them are pinballs. I got 1 or 2 video games, and I got a couple cranes in there. But it's mainly a pinball thing. We split 50-50 with the hotel on that. That's been turning in after commissions, because we have to pay a commission to the hotel. We've been picking up between $2,000 and $3,500, somewhere in there, depending on the traffic in the hotel. And we also have per week. And we also have a contract that we had with the theater before we left. We still have machines in the movie theater next to our old location. We also have a couple of machines in bars and restaurants, and yes, we even still sell this old pinball jazz through the mail. So that's basically what it is. Last year, our income for the year was about got an exact number here, $619,701, which is about $13,000 a week. That was in calendar year 2011. This year is going to be up considerably because the Riviera started hitting on all cylinders and we had a fantastic summer. So I could anticipate $15,000 to $17,000 a week is going to be our average this year. Right now, 85% of what we take in comes from the Pinball Museum. This is the old adage that you put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket very well. Contract operations at the Riviera are about 10%. 2% is the non-contract operations at the theater and sales of discs, and about 3% is a gumball machine program that we run for the Salvation Army. In 2011, expenses for the club, we paid nothing in labor. This is one of the cornerstones of our organization, is that we're all volunteer and nobody has ever paid anything. I work full-time for free, and everybody else that works there also works there for free. We don't get a clothing allowance, we don't get tools, we don't get anything. We do once a year have a volunteer labor appreciation dinner, which last year cost us $700 to get all the volunteers, have them a nice buffet meal, present them with some goofy awards and things like that. We also don't pay any rent, which is another thing most businesses can't say. We own the building free and clear. We're back in debt on the lot, but the lot debt has been reduced to about $300,000 again, a very comfortable debt to equity ratio, and we have no trouble making our monthly payments on the principal or the interest on the debt. Last year we had a problem with some guy suing us because he lost 75 cents in the game. I don't know if you've been following the adventures of Las Vegas Pinball Collectors Club versus Luckett, but that cost us $12,159 last year in legal bills. Postage and blank discs for the discs that we sent out cost about $700. We paid $49,866 in commissions. This is to the theater and the Riviera. If it was up to me, I would just give them half the money in cash and then bank our half as income. But the accounting rules say that since it goes into the game, we have to take it as income and then back out commissions. So that's about $50,000 we paid in commissions. Occupancy is $21,524. This includes things like utilities. We pay $1,494 a month last year in electric, which is very good for 200 games. We were very thrifty with electricity. Our water bill for a sink and a toilet, anyone got an idea what it costs for one sink and one toilet for a water bill in Las Vegas? Any guesses?
$500.
$428 a month for a sink and a toilet.
Oh my God!
Highway robbery. The volunteer labor appreciation dinner, we spent $757. We paid interest of $7,282 on our loans last year. Depreciation is $700 $73,606. Now, if you're into accounting at all, you know that depreciation is really a strange thing. We're required to depreciate the building every year for an equal amount for 30 years, and we're supposed to depreciate the equipment an equal amount over 5 years. So when we bought our first games, the club owns the new games that are in the front row. We bought a Family Guy for $3,900, and now according to the depreciation schedule, it's worth $285. So the realistic value of a Family Guy, a Pirates of the Caribbean, Wheel of Fortune are literally on our books at $200. Also, the building is depreciating slowly, even though the value of the building is probably going the other way. So keep in mind that depreciation is a number that has nothing to do with reality. Supplies for vending machines, we have a soda machine, a popcorn machine, and we run a gumball machine program for the Salvation Army, both in our owned and operated locations and in all their thrift stores. It took us $21,855 to buy gumball machines and gumballs and soda. And the biggest item on our tax return right here, $516,000 we gave away to local social service charities last year. That's in 2011. I've had many questions, including Clay here, who keeps asking me, well, if you're giving all this money to help the homeless, why don't you give some of it for carpet or some new bathroom fixtures, or my favorite one, why don't you just pay somebody to help you out? And this goes to the heart of our organization and what we are. We are and probably always will be an amateur organization. We're not professional, and we're proud of the fact that we aren't professional. We're just a bunch of guys that hang out and do pinball machine stuff. We could pay people. I could give myself a salary tomorrow. It could be a huge salary. There's nothing that can really be said about it because I guess I earn it, and most not-for-profits do pay the people that work there. Just as an example, the head guy at the Salvation Army makes $68,000 a year. Now, keep in mind that as the leader of a large organization, the Salvation Army in Las Vegas is a $17 million a year organization. What they pay him is very small compared to what a normal CEO would make in a business of that size. Most people in not-for-profits in Las Vegas, they publish the pay in the paper every year, are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. The guy that runs Goodwill Industries in Las Vegas paid himself $580,000 last year. So I have no real problem with the fact that the major is getting paid $68,000 to run the Salvation Army. Keep in mind that his wife works full-time beside him for free, and they tithe 10% of what they get in salary back to the Salvation Army. So you're getting a twofer, and you're getting 10% back, and you can't really beat that. The Salvation Army is a very thrifty organization. Much like us, they don't spend money on things that don't matter, and our goal as a club is to be more like a Kiwanis Club or a Lions Club or a Car Collectors Club, where we just gather together after work, have fun, and do charitable fundraisers. We're not really interested in professional signage or professional t-shirts. You can see the t-shirts that I'm wearing are obviously handmade. We're very, very thrifty. I think you called it cheap trick bastard several times. We squeeze a penny until it screams, okay, I get the message. I'm going to free the slaves, honestly.
Is that a Joe Biden reference?
No, that's an Abraham Lincoln joke. So we're dedicated to being kind of ass backwards, kind of unprofessional. You may have noticed when you come into the place, there isn't a lot of professionally made signs, there isn't a greeter, there isn't anything. It's just a big dark room full of pinball machines. And this is done on purpose because we have two goals and only two goals. They're clearly stated, and we don't involve ourselves in anything else. Our two goals are, one, to provide a place for the public to walk in and play pinball, and 2, give money to local social service charities. You'll notice that in that list of things to do, we don't include an education program. We're not necessarily interested in teaching people how to fix pinballs, how to play pinball. He did this old pinballs. I had very little to do with that other than selling them. He did most of the filming and the editorial work. We don't have an artist program. We don't have interns. We don't have community outreach. We don't have an ice cream social. We've decided that we're going to do one thing and one thing only and try to do it really well. The thing that I always found was really lame is when you see people are going around trying to do 100 different things at once and they're not doing any of them very well. So that's our goal. Where we're going in the future, we've decided we're not going to move uptown. We're going to keep our amateur status. It's going to mean that from time to time, repairs are going to slow down. If there's extenuating circumstances like this summer when I was in the hospital for a while, things fell behind. If business suddenly, like it did this summer, took an uptick, that means that I'm not going to be able to keep up and the down rate is going to suffer. Now we're starting to catch back up. Our down rate is reduced considerably from where it was at the peak of the summer. The games are cleaner than they were. We've also been going around and replacing almost all our incandescent lamps with LEDs. The advantages of LEDs that are obvious are that they run cooler and that they last just about forever, and they also use a lot less energy. So what I figured out is when the hippie, some people here probably remember the hippie, the guy that was helping me back in the day, well, he moved back to Michigan. He's no longer with me, and when he left, I suddenly began to realize how much time and effort we spent replacing light bulbs. You literally, with the crappy quality of the light bulbs that are coming off the boat from China now, have to go around and replace light bulbs. In less than 6 months, you'll be back at the same game replacing the same bulbs. And it was just a time factor. If you figure out a light bulb costs you 9 cents, and it uses about 9 cents worth of electricity, and your labor to take it in and out at $10 an hour is about $1 to $1.50. So what you really want to look at when you're looking at light bulbs is the labor it takes to take all the ramps off, take the thing off, pop in a new bulb, and then put all that jazz back on there. We decided that we couldn't do that anymore. We're going to continue to give money to local social service charities. We've had several people say that we should branch out and do something else, and that by giving the money to the homeless, we're only encouraging them to be homeless. We've also had some criticism about the Salvation Army being a church, which they absolutely are. But myself personally and our board of directors as a group has no problem with the fact that the Salvation Army is a religious organization, and we also have no problem with the simple act of Christian charity. We want to help other people that need help. It's something we believe in. It's something that we're going to continue to do. Kind of jokingly, our motto is that we're the last real arcade in America. We don't have any laser tag. We don't have any mini golf. We don't have violent video games. The little gangbang wannabes come in with their big puffy pants and their big white shoes, and they go, "Hey, me man, where's the kung fu games? Where's the dance machine?" And they look around and they don't see anything they want to play.
They see Citizens.
They see, no, those aren't video games. We keep a few video games around, mainly for the spouses and for the kids that happen along. We also got a great scam going with the cranes.
That's what they're for.
You know how crane games are rigged.
Yeah.
Because you can never win on them. Well, we turned the knob all the way up so the voltage is at 100%. And you just get an animal just about every time. Because we get free animals from the Salvation Army. We're worshipped as gods down at the Salvation Army. They basically give us anything we want. I'll go down there and pick up cases, big boxes full of slightly used animals, and throw them in the crane. Because I got news for you, when we were kids, we got a toy, we would play with it until we broke it or wore it out or something like that. Kids today, they get a toy, they go, oh, wow, and they throw it in the corner, and eventually mom puts it in a box and gives it to the Salvation Army. It's never been used. 90% of the toys we get from the Salvation Army are brand new, they still have the tags on them. So I go through, I load the crane, if I see something that's dirty, I just throw it out. Something that's wrinkled, I throw it out, but 90% of them are perfectly okay. Another area that we're extremely thrifty in, cheap prick bastard, is that I pick up the popcorn that they don't sell in the theater every day. I put it in a big plastic sack, and I take it and I put it in our popcorn machine the next morning. The money that goes into the popcorn machine, in theory, almost pays for the soda that goes in the soda machine. And the money from the soda machine, which is now pure profit, almost pays our electric bill. So it's a food chain where the little fish eats the big fish, which eats the big fish, and pays the bills. This is a twisted thing that we do. We try to figure out ways that we can make the operation more efficient. Every day we're figuring out, we just spent $100 for a new faucet in the sink so that we use less water. But basically that's what our club is. That's where we're going as an organization. And everybody else that has ideas, people are constantly bombarding me with ideas. And I listen to most of them. I really do consider things people say. But basically, what it comes down to is, fuck y'all, this is the way we do it. If you don't like that, you can open your own. Which brings us to the second part of the seminar, which is what others have done. And this is going to give you a quick overview of some of the other pinball collectors clubs and or museums and or guys who hang out and do pinball. So you know what we are. You might also know the Lucky Juju Dash Pinball, Pacific Pinball Expo, Pacific Pinball Museum, Neptune Beach Amusement Museum, Lucky Juju Shooting Gallery and Funland. Every week they have to have a new name at this joint. They are also a legal not-for-profit corporation. They do pay people. They haven't paid staff. Their model is different than ours. They have to pay one price at the door, which I don't agree with. I prefer a free gate where you walk in for nothing and put coins in the games. They're also doing this with a rental facility. They don't own the building they're in. I realized that part of the reason we own our building in Las Vegas and now the vacant lot next to us is we were just playing in the right place at the right time, slapped the money down and bought it. That's not always available. Alameda is right next to Oakland, one of the most desirable areas in the Bay Area. It's the garden spot of the West, and you can't always find the space you want when you want it. Mike and his crew have been looking for years, trying to find...
are better than yours.
Yeah. They've been trying to find a space that they want, and I can tell you from experience that you look and you look and you look, you get very close, and then something screws up. You went through that too. Yeah. So part of what put us where we're at is just plain dumb luck. These guys are looking to move into the, what do you call it, the Palace of Fine Arts?
That's right.
It used to be the Vibratorium.
Exploratorium, I thought.
No, I heard it was the Vibratorium. It's an existing building that's apparently very huge. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. I think what's going to happen is what happened to them at the Naval Air Station, where they got this close and then somebody pulled it back away from them. There's a lot of heartbreak involved when it comes to real estate. There's other museums. There's the National Pinball Museum in Baltimore, Washington. It's also a pay-one-price attraction. They're also in a rental facility. And if you've been following the drama that's been going on with the National Pinball Museum, you know that they signed a very stupid lease which allowed the landlord to kick them out at any time with 90 days notice. And that's what happened. They had a free rent deal, but they had to do a whole bunch of improvements. They spent a couple $100,000 in improvements and then got told to leave. And a piece of advice, if you're going to have a lease, read every word of it. If you don't understand any part of it, get somebody who does to tell you what it means. The National Museum is got a paid staff, and Dave Silverman runs it. I've never been there. They're also using swipe cards on some of the machines, and unfortunately, they chose one of the systems of swipe cards routinely doesn't work. That's the one they got. There's also a pinball museum on the Jersey Shore in Asbury Park. They are a legal 501(c) corporation. It's another pay one price thing. Except their model's slightly different. You buy an hour's worth of time, or 2 hours worth of time, or 5 hours worth of time, and apparently every hour somebody goes around and checks, and if you're still playing at the end of the hour, you either have to pony up for another hour, or you get kicked out. They also have a paid staff. They're also in a rental facility, and they've had a lot of problems with the city of Asbury Park, giving them a problem about their license, and now the latest thing is that now that the area has become slightly gentrified, they want to take away the free parking on the street in front of their door and put in parking meters, which they don't think is a good idea because nobody likes to pay for parking, and it's the gentrification that made the parking attractive. Why is it that the people that made the neighborhood no longer a ghetto now have to pay for the parking? There's also Lions Pinball Classic, which is in a small Colorado town, where are they pay one price?
I don't think so.
No.
I think they're coin op. Again, this is a small town, and the people that run it are friendly with the town fathers. They've done their PR. They're not a belligerent asshole who asks, what is it, maybe it's better to beg
Ask for forgiveness
than ask permission. So there is something to be said for getting along and going along. And you'd be surprised what you can get from the town fathers if you just introduce yourself and tell them what they're trying to do. There's also a huge arcade in Texas now. I don't have much information. Does anybody know about that one?
Pinball's Arcade?
Yeah, I think it's in Austin or something.
Yeah, it's in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, Texas is a miserable place, full of degenerates. There's also one in Right, there's also one in Seattle, down by the Space Needle. Is that one pay one price?
Yeah,
Actually, it's in the international
Oh, it
district.
is the shortage, you mean?
No, it's not.
No.
It's
Seattle
called
Pinball
Seattle
Museum.
Pinball Museum.
Yeah.
So that's a brief overview of what people have done, all the way from big-ass operations like the Lucky Juju Pacific Pinball Museum, NBAM, by the beach or not by the beach, and the Pinball Hall of Fame, down to the smaller organizations like Flipper City. One of the reasons we wanted to do this seminar is that we give you an idea and maybe give you a taste. You saw in his video a bunch of people having fun. That's real gratifying, I can tell you, to see people in your joint having fun. And if you do it right, like he has, keeping your expenses down, keeping your head below the radar, you can do it at a minimal expense to you. You're not going to lose a whole lot of money. So this is an idea. Maybe you can get together with some other people in your area. You can start a small club. You can think about it. The third part of the seminar is things you need to know if you're going to start a pinball club. First and foremost is you've got to have a very small amount, 1, 2, or 3 very clearly stated goals and nothing else. You have to be very careful in your organization to avoid what's called mandate creep, where all of a sudden you started out being one thing, and then you start creeping over towards doing something else, and meanwhile you're going off in this direction. Pretty soon you're spiraling out of control. It's no longer what it was. Keep it simple, stupid. Pick 1 or 2 things that you want to do and don't do anything else. Right now, I would also avoid ownership of real estate. The Pinball Hall of Fame, again, was kind of a unique situation. We were able to buy and own, which works well for us, but right now there's such a huge oversupply of commercial real estate, particularly on B and C streets and in industrial spaces like where he ended up, that you can pick it up for less than what it costs the landlord to produce that space. So landlords are literally giving it away for less than the cost of production just to get somebody in there. You could start out small in a rental facility, try it for a year, try it for 2 years. If it works out fine, you can re-up your lease, you can move somewhere else, or if it doesn't work out, throw the keys back at the landlord and go back to your having your life. Right now, prices are down probably 50 to 60% for rentals of what they were at the peak. And something to keep in mind if you're talking to a landlord about leases is that rates are generally either all-inclusive, which is called a flat rent or a net rent, or it's triple net, which is plus, plus, plus. You don't really have to know the difference. All you need to know is that if it says I'm getting X amount per square foot, plus, 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 or triple net, you can generally add on about 25%. Also keep in mind that all landlords are lying evil scum. And if you rent a space that they say is, how large was yours?
24. And then this one was 32.
3,200 square feet. I guarantee you, if you take a tape measure and measure your space, you're going to come up at about 2,250 square feet.
I did measure, and it is smaller. One of the reasons is that the way they measure the walls from the outside to the outside.
You're paying for the walls.
You're paying for
the
the
concrete blocks in the walls. So what you got to do is tell the landlord, look, I'm onto your little scam. I'm not paying for the walls. So we're going to measure this from here to here. You do this after you've negotiated your best price. You get them back down to the real honest square feet. Also keep in mind that for some reason in the West, generally rents are listed and negotiated in per square foot by the month, but in Michigan they're generally done by the year.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is divide and multiply by 12. If he says it's $15 a foot or $12 a foot, that's the equivalent of $1 somewhere else. I don't know why that is, that's just the way it is. Also keep in mind that you're going to probably have to sign a personal guarantee on the lease. That means that if the club or whatever it is that's doing this defaults, you're going to have to make up the difference. Also keep in mind that landlords never ever take a tenant to court, especially on the end of a short lease. If you've got a year, a half a year left on your lease, you can just pretty much walk away and they're not going to do anything because the cost of chasing you down is more than they're going to collect. Or you can go in and say, look, this didn't work out for me, here's the keys, the place is clean, just eat the rest of the rent, you won't have a problem, especially in today's market. There's also something in your lease called force majeure, which is basically freak acts of nature. Keep in mind that this allows the landlord to cancel your lease if a tornado hits the building and knocks it flat. In other words, if it's a freak occurrence of nature, all bets are off. But keep in mind that this works both ways. If you sign a lease and you have a heart attack and die, your widow, instead of having to pay the rest of the rent through the end of the lease, can just invoke the force majeure clause and say, my husband died of a heart attack, it wasn't his fault, you don't have to hold him to the lease. Also keep in mind that you're going to need 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. This is some national code that you pretty much can take to the bank. Also, you're going to need pretty much 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet because your customers are always going to ride in a car. Very few of them are going to walk up. You're also going to have to be very specific with your landlord about anything that's needed to bring the building up to code and who's going to pay for it. Make sure that's locked in absolutely before you sign a lease. Keep in mind that most leases say that things that are permanently attached to the building are the responsibility of the landlord. This includes the roof, the ceiling, the walls, the toilets, and the sink. And anything that's not permanently attached to the building is your responsibility. Ripped carpets, ceiling tiles that have fallen down, doorknobs but not the doors. Be very specific with your landlord. And if the guy seems vague and squirrely, don't be afraid to walk away. You have a right to ask these questions before you sign a lease. Then we get into an area called licenses, taxes, and permits per game. This is one of the reasons why it's so hard for people to open these is because there's a lot of local laws. It varies by locality. The first thing you have to do is go to municode.com, a website that will feature the municipal code for your township, county, city, whatever you're in, and you can read it. You have to go read it, and you have to watch out for certain key words, including coin-operated game, amusement machine, gumball machines costing 25 cents or less, and the words gross revenue. Now, in a lot of areas, it'll say amusement machine, in which case you have to buy a permit for every amusement machine. But in other areas, it says coin-operated amusement game. If you have a ticket, a swipe card, a paper pass, or if you pay one price, it's no longer coin-operated because you're using something other than a metal disc. So a lot of people, including I think Lucky Juju, get around that by not having actual coins. Also in Nevada, we have what's called a community theater exemption. Technically, we don't even have to have a business license because state law says that community theaters are exempt from license requirements, and the definition of community theater is any place with amusement for the public benefit, which we definitely fit. Another thing you should do is before you pull the trigger on your plan, you should go to your township clerk and actually ask to read the regulations in book form, because sometimes the things that municode.com has are outdated or wrong. Another thing you're going to have to realize is that you're going to have to pay personal property tax on all the equipment that's in your building, your space. The landlord pays the property tax on the building, but you're responsible for the value of the games. So what you do within a week or two of opening, unless you're going to fly under the radar, which is what he does, you're going to have to file a personal property tax statement with your county or township clerk that lists the installed cost and the installed year of when you bought the game and how much you bought it for. Usually, they depreciate out after 5 or possibly 7 years. So if the game is over 7 years, you're only responsible for the salvage value of 5%. So just keep in mind that by filing promptly before you open, you can get that personal property tax valuation very low or almost nothing at all. If you forget to do that step, the assessor will come in and count 100 machines. These machines are worth $2,000, according to American Pickers, $3,000. And that's what you're going to have to pay. They'll make an estimate and you have to pay it. Keep in mind that you're also going to have to go through land use, which is also called zoning. You're going to have to apply for a special use permit just about everywhere now. In order to be an arcade or a museum, you need the permission of the local municipality, and they're going to have a meeting where the neighbors and concerned tight-ass white people are going to show up and say, we don't want this filthy thing in our neighborhood, it's going to drive our property values down. If you get to that point and you go to the meeting, you should try to placate the people who are at the meeting by saying, first of all, that you're not going to have children, you're not going to have live or recorded music. That's one thing that tight-ass white suburban people are scared to death of is rap concerts. They will not have that in their neighborhood. So tell them you'll agree that we'll never have live or recorded music, no concerts, we'll have limited hours, we'll be an asset to the community, and we'll have no redemption games, which is kiddie casino stuff, or no violent video games. Usually, land use is fairly simple. Back in the 60s and 70s, when arcades were seen as the devil's work and Satan's playground and all that, you get a lot of opposition, but people have pretty much moved on beyond that. They don't care that much. I've always handled land use issues myself. You don't have to hire anybody. It's really simple. You just go up before a meeting. People might have any questions. You give them some story that'll placate them. They'll give you your permit. There's also going to be electrical issues if you get into running a lot of games. The electrical inspector is going to come in. He's going to want, first of all, ground fault interrupters in all bathrooms. That'll cost you 10 to 20 bucks to put ground faults in your bathroom. You're also going to have exit signs with batteries. Those are $30 to $50. You're going to need one over every door. You're also, if your electrical inspector is having a bad day, he's going to say, I want only UL listed equipment in here, which means that only Gottlieb System 3 games are the only games you can put in there, because technically those are the only time that any of the manufacturers bothered to get a UL listing. That's never really happened in the real world. What you do is, if he says he wants a UL listing, just take him around and show him the fact that all your games have new cord sets. They're 3-wire cord sets. Your trim is rounded. There's no frayed cords. whatever you do, don't have the kind of screw-on ends, even on your EM games, where you screw the end onto the existing plug. Electrical inspectors see that and they just go ape shit. Always go to the dollar store, buy a 15-foot 2 or 3 wire extension cord, lop the female end off, use the male end. You've got a brand new cord set for less than $5, best $5 you're ever going to spend. Also keep in mind that the electrical inspector is going to look on the back of the game and they're going to see a tag that says 8 amps per game. So he's going to say, well, on 120 amp circuit, that means you can have 3 games. And I want a subdivision circuit for every 3 games. You should point out that, first of all, that's a fictitious number that they just put on the tag. Then you tell them, we use LEDs, and LEDs only use 5% of the electricity. So we're down to about 1 or 2 amps. Usually they'll buy that and let you put 8, 10, 12 games on a circuit, which is reasonable. Other than that, you're going to have building department issues. Sprinklers, like he said, sprinklers are a major expense. We paid $80,000 to put sprinklers in our building for an 8,600 square foot building. They also, even though we had a fire hydrant 20 feet away and another fire hydrant 20 feet the other way, they wanted one in front of the building. Basically, the fire marshal wants what he wants, and you kind of have to give the fire marshal exactly what he wants. Those guys don't budge at all. But when it comes to things like ADA bathrooms, we dodged the bullet on that. They just said, well, we're not going to deal with that right now. Don't worry about that. The thing with the mop sink, I've never heard anybody that's had to actually put in a mop sink. So yeah, there's a bunch of things, a bunch of hoops you're going to have to jump through in order to have it. Or you can take the attitude that Clay took right here, which is basically, I'm going to fly under the radar, I'm going to try this, I'm going to sign a lease in my own name, I'm going to pay for it out of my own pocket, I'm going to try to somehow recoup the costs. I just want a place for me and my buddies to gather and play pinball. That's pretty much how you might try starting out. And from there, you could move on to the next step, which might be a bigger spot, which might be an actual business license, and all the stuff that comes with it. So that'll give you some ideas of what you can do to start your own pinball club. One more thing I want to mention, we're almost out of time. When I got sick earlier this year, I realized that we really need at the Pinball Hall of Fame more help. So what we started is a program we call Pinball Summer Camp, where we're inviting people who like to fix games to come to Las Vegas. We have a fully equipped residence in back of the museum that features a nice 2-bedroom that overlooks a park that's in back of us. We've got a shower, full bathroom, we've got a full kitchen, we've got a living area. It's also extremely quiet and cool back there because it's under a bunch of trees. It's really nice. You are invited to come and stay in the residence free of charge. We'll also feed you, we'll take you out and get you one of our fine Las Vegas buffet restaurants. What we need is people who like to come and fix pinball machines. You're invited. Please see me at this show if you're interested in doing this. If you're an EM guy, don't worry, we've got plenty for you to fix. If you're a new Stern guy, we've got lots of that to fix. If you're a monitor guy, I will bow down and kiss your feet because I hate doing monitors. Any way that you want to help, we will make a program that works for you, and you will have a place to stay, and we'll feed you. So that's kind of where we're going with the Pinball Summer Camp. Please see me about doing that, and I think our time is up. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Arnold has been a constant source of inspiration and direction for the Pacific Pinball Museum. To show our appreciation, I'd like to call up Michael Sheese and the board of directors that are here.
Tim. Photo opportunity.
Oh, okay. Well, it's true. We don't do all volunteer. We can sometimes afford some money to buy.
Different strokes for different folks.
To reach out and award people who do a lot for the pinball community. So on behalf of the Pacific Pinball Museum, we made you this gorgeous plaque.
Ooh. That's the nicest plaque since the one I saw
For your
this morning.
contributions.
I scraped off my teeth, thank you. That the PPE and the NBAM and the LFAT, or whatever the hell you call it this week, we have also got you, since this whole organization here seems to be constantly near a catastrophe, we've decided to give you our first cat ass trophy because you, sir, are the cat's ass. There's the cat's ass there, there's the cat's ass trophy. And most importantly, if you push the cat's feet, words of wisdom. So you, sir, are the cat's ass.
Thank you. What can I say? It's beautiful. You.
No, you demand.
The next session will start in 15 minutes.
We weren't here, we were at a party, but yes, we were drinking.